Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be an Alchemist build for patch 7.37D, but this Alchemist build is pretty much the same Alchemist build for almost every patch, unless something crazy changes. I mean, they already changed his passive and one of his abilities, and it's still the same build generally that he almost always goes, obviously for carry or mid. Now, if you're going to do some off lane or some support Alchemist, it's going to be a little bit different, but this one is mainly for carry or mid. So let's just jump into the items. The starting items are going to be Quelling Blade. You're obviously going to buy that every time. Tango's like almost every hero. And then the Gauntlets of Strength and the Branches, obviously, these are just stat items. And these Gauntlets of Strength are specifically for the Soul Ring. Now, you see I have the Soul Ring in situational. If you look on Dota 2 Pro Tracker, Soul Ring is bought a lot, if not every single game. But there are a lot of people that think you don't necessarily need to buy Soul Ring. And there are some games where they don't buy it and they can get away with it. Now, I think the lower MMR you are, the better it is to get an early Radiance timing and the greedier you can be with not buying Soul Ring. So I definitely think that's something that you can get away with if you're just like, you know, not a pro player and you don't need that strength or that armor in the lane, that kind of stuff. But just keep in mind, this is something that's bought all the time and I'm still going to put it in situational. And that's why you're starting with these Gauntlets of Strength. If you don't want to buy the Soul Ring, then you don't necessarily have to start with this. You can just start with a wand and like some stat items, some extra branches or whatever you want. That way you can just go straight into buying treads and then straight into buying Radiance after that. So keep that in mind. That is something you can do. But that is what we're going to do for the first items. We're just going to buy, you know, treads. Maybe we have a Soul Ring, maybe we don't. And then we're going straight into the Radiance. Now you're pretty much always going to be buying this first and then finishing the Radiance off with that. There might be weird occasions where you want to get this first, but that doesn't really ever happen. Maybe on some situational heroes, maybe like a Spectre, I don't know, it just depends. But usually it's going to be this way. Unless they change Radiance, you're just always going to be buying this. And you're almost always going to be buying Radiance first item. There have been patches where this hero buys Battle Fury, but it's honestly few and far between, or even Maelstrom, but like I said, few and far between. Now from there, this build can actually shift a little bit. So for most carry builds, you're going to want to get Manta style. You can potentially get S and Y if you don't really need the Dispel from Manta, but just keep in mind that this is also really good for just pushing waves and being annoying in fights when you buy a Radiance. Like, you're almost always going to want to get the Manta with the Radiance paired up because that Radiance on those illusions is so good. But this is specifically also for carry. You could maybe skip the Manta altogether and go straight into a Blink if you're doing like a mid Alchemist after you get your Radiance. That way you can participate more. Or maybe you're not just like the only carry in the game because there's a lot of carry mids and carry off lanes these days. So maybe you want to go Blink pretty early in the game in general because you feel like you need to initiate a lot of the fights or a lot of the ganks. You can do that. You could even wait to get Blink later if you're going full carry build and then just go straight into BKB because you feel like, you know, I don't really need to do anything other than frontline. I don't really need to initiate. I can just run in with Manta with the Dispel, BKB to get off extra survivability, and then just I can, you know, take Roche, frontline, hit towers, that kind of stuff. And then usually as your next like big item that isn't one of these four, because you're always going to be getting something around these four. The only one that you might not get is maybe Manta, or in a really good game for some reason, maybe you'll skip BKB. You would get AC, and this is going to be like your bigger late game item. And this is generally going to be something along the lines of your inventory at like 4 or 5 items. And then from there, you can get other items. So maybe you either get rid of treads, or maybe you didn't buy a Blink and you can go with an Abyssal Blade because you're going to be attacking really fast. Or maybe you will go with a Bloodthorn because this is a really good damage item as well. That extra silence is also great too. And then from there, if you get like one of these items, maybe 2 of these items, you are usually going to start getting your Ags for your allies. Now you're probably going to get your shard maybe earlier on in the game. You want to just buy it randomly if you need it, if you feel like. I usually wouldn't get moon shards until after I buy an Ags or 2. Maybe there's a couple Ags on your team that are really bad, so you don't feel like buying these and you'd rather buy a moon shard for yourself or another right-click hero on your team. That's kind of just situational. And then also later you can buy Boots of Travel too, or refreshers and those kinds of things. But it generally you will get AC as a late game item, and then Abyssal Blade or Bloodthorn will be another late game item, and then these are just like extra late game after you pretty much like 6 slotted yourself. So those are all the items that you would normally buy, and then let's just sell a few items here in case we want to buy other ones. I have situational items here, which is Soul Ring, I already talked about. You can get Octarine Core. That's something that just like allows your ultimate to be up a lot more, so you don't really have any downtime on your ultimate. This is something maybe more for like a mid Alchemist, offlane Alchemist, maybe something that is more popular in certain patches, not really right now. If you buy a blink, you could upgrade to overwhelming blink to cancel other people's blinks or to just do more damage and you blink in and have a lot of strength, or swift blink to attack more to be faster once you're getting rid of boots, that kind of thing. I think swift blink is more popular right now, but you can always buy overwhelming blink. That is something that's an option. Maybe you need a nullifier instead of like one of these items because, you know, there's a lot of things you need to nullify for whatever reason in that game. Maybe refresher is a really good item right now because you need 2 BKBs, you really need your ultimates, that kind of stuff. Maybe you're just against a ton of right click damage. That's all the enemy has is right clicks, and butterfly can be very good as well. The other thing about butterfly to keep in mind right now, you can disassemble radiance and make a butterfly and then also make a nullifier. So later on in the game, for whatever reason, if you feel like you don't really need the radiance, you can honestly do that, and that can be a good way to kind of boost yourself up because radiance does fall off a little bit later in the game with this kind of damage over time. It doesn't really do as much when people get really tanky. The miss chance is good, but then obviously you're getting a butterfly to replace that, which is even better. So just keep that in mind. That is something that you can do. MKB if you're against someone that has a bunch of evasion or is buying a butterfly themselves. Silver Edge against any break targets. I have Scotty, not super popular right now, but it's tanky, helps you to stick on targets. Satanic, not really something you are going to buy that often, but right click carries sometimes like it. Heart, again, not a great item right now, especially for carries. Shivas, this would be more of like if you really need a ton of armor and you're like a mid or offlane alchemist, I guess, but again, not super popular. Harpoon, not very popular. Lincoln's is very specific against like Doom or other things that you really need it. Maybe Duel from Legion. Revenant's Brooch, I just keep this in here because it is sort of a right-click item against certain heroes. Scythe, if you're just going all in for helping your team, like the other players on your team are carrying at this point and you just need some control. And then Divine Raper, you could potentially get this if you want later on in the game. He's not the best, honestly, because it just, once you get to the point where you're buying this, he kind of falls off. So you'd rather just have regular items and then honestly build in one direction, like a tanky direction, helping your teammates, getting control, whatever it is that you want to do. But that is the Alchemist item build. In general, you're honestly going to be sticking around most of these. These are very situational, and that's pretty straightforward what you're going to be building. And the build, like I said, is going to be the same for almost every patch when this hero was good, other than maybe being a Battle Fury patch or something like that, but that's kind of rare. Then, when we look at the abilities, we can see that the first ability that you are going to get is Unstable Concoction. And this is good because this just helps you lane a lot. Now, sometimes in some patches, Acid Spray can be good, but Concoction is just really good for First Blood, for really zoning out the enemy. And a lot of times this level 1 in Acid Spray pushes the wave, so maybe you don't necessarily want to push the wave, you just want to ward the enemy off, or maybe you're scared in your lane of getting dove or something like that, or getting chased down, so you just want this to be aggressive or be defensive. I think this is just overall better ability right now, and most people pick it, but for the most part, you can do Acid Spray level 1 in some patches. That is a viable build, so just keep that in mind. And anyway, you're going to get Acid Spray level 2, and that's just because this is the other good laning ability. And then usually you're going to want to try to max out Acid Spray first, and because this Corrosive Weaponry is now his other third main ability, you're pretty much never going to be leveling this in the actual lane, and so you really can just focus on these two abilities, and you want to max Acid Spray by the end of the lane so you can jungle efficiently. So you're going to get 2 points in that, then maybe a second point in Unstable Concoction because you don't really have anything else to put it in, and then you're going to max out Acid Spray with that third one, then the ultimate, and the fourth one. And then that's going to be your level 6 and then level 7. Then from there, we're going to max out Unstable Concoction, get the points in ultimate whenever we can, get the level 10 talent when at level 10 when we can, and then same thing with the Corrosive Weaponry. We're just going to get that whenever we can when we don't have something to skill for our ultimate or when we don't have a talent to get. And then you're going to max out that Corrosive Weaponry last and get your talents at every single point that you can. You're going to go left talent and then all right talents pretty much until 25. You can maybe get more regen, but at this time, honestly, a lot of people have ways to deal with your regen or make it worse. So this movement speed is just very good for getting in and out of fights, for sticking on your targets, that kind of thing. So a lot of people are picking this. It's like 70 to 80% picked over this level 25 talent because plus 50 isn't that good at this time. But if there's not a lot to deal with your regeneration, this can just make you immortal. But for the most part, pro players are picking that right talent. But yeah, this is what you're going to do for the most part. I mean, maybe you could pick one Acid Spray armor, but that's not really that good. It doesn't scale as much, where that Unstable Concoction radius does scale to make those, potential stuns, even in a late game, be more effective. And then the Grievel's Greed stack, that's not really important. The damage on Unstable Concoction, that's really going to be only for like a support-based build. So you're really going to ignore that for the most part. So that's Alchemist. That's the item build and that's the skill build for this patch. And like I said, they're probably going to change, some talents. They're going to change some things with the balance of the hero. But for the most part, this is the item build that's been on this hero for a long, long time with some small tweaks. You can pretty much use this into the future, even if this is like 6 months to a year old, unless they drastically change something. So that is my Alchemist build. Thanks everyone. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, all those kinds of things. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.